capacity utilization.
Yes.
We've been watching that. And, you know, one of the things that I think has been key to this recession has been, or gives you a lot of insight into it, is the lack of investment. And what's really interesting is that government policy, for the most part, has not been about investments. It's all been about increasing spending somehow, getting cash into people's hands, hoping they spend it. But if all of a sudden their asset values went way down, they get the money, they either pay off loans or they save it, which is what we saw happen. And so you don't get investment. Mm-hmm. And so then we look at capacity utilization, and it fell so low in this recession that there's no, you know, why would business invest when their capacity utilization is as low as it is?
Yeah.
And it's since picked up, right? And
it has come up some.
Yeah.
It's not at a healthy level,
right.
Really. It's not at a level that you associate with fairly rapid economic growth.
Yes, and not high enough to cause business to have to go out and invest on new facilities, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay. Anything else happening in today's economy that, on a national level, that we talk about?
I hate to be dour, but the home price data continues to come in very poorly, very pessimistically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a newspaper or TV reporter call me up and said, somebody said it could fall 20%. What do you think of that? And I go, well, it's possible. Mm-hmm. What would be surprising if it went up 10%?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, retail, which I look at the monthly retail to try to give me an idea of where the next quarterly consumption number is going to be. It's been weakening past couple of months.
And also preliminary orders for manufacturing for the Christmas and holiday season has been weak.
Okay.
And so we may be looking at a soft holiday season, especially if the job numbers don't improve at all. And so, okay. Yeah. Okay, and then California. Then there's California. We got a balanced budget. Well, we got a budget anyway. You know, and I actually thought it was pretty good shot at first attempt at fixing it. It doesn't solve the problem that's inherent in the spending patterns and the pensions and all that the state has, but you sort of have to get past square one to get to square two. So I didn't think it was all that bad, and but California is just still weak, right?
Yes, it is. There was a sort of a little bit of an anomalous pop in Q1 where California looked a little bit stronger. Some of the data came in stronger.
1 month job data,
but,
right?
But I believe that's transitory.
Yeah. You know, Joe Kotkin just had a piece this week in Forbes, and it listed the cities with the most growth potential in the next decade, and it's dominated by Texas. And there were a couple, I think maybe 3 California cities in the top 20, whereas you know. When I was starting my career, most of them would have been in California, I think. But so we've definitely become less competitive, and I think it's going to slow down the recovery. So we can watch Texas and North Dakota, of all places, see their economy pick up and all that. So, okay, so that's sort of what's going on. We weren't surprised by the job data,
right? And
we expect slow job gains, some productivity gains. And so it's still looking like another tough 6-8 months a year anyway.
Yep.
And real estate prices soft. Okay, so but I brought you here to talk about modeling, because that's what you do, right?
Now we really get to put people to sleep.
Yeah. Okay, so where'd you learn how to model? They don't teach that in grad school.
Yeah, it was my first job. It was at WEFA, which stands for Wharton Econometric Forecasting Associates. It doesn't actually exist anymore under that name.
It's Global Insight now?
It's IHS, Global Insight.
Okay.
First came Global Insight, and then IHS, which is a large French firm, purchased Global Insight. But
and that was started by a couple of professors at Wharton, right?
Yeah, Lawrence Klein.
Lawrence Klein.
Nobel winner in the 60s, I think, for what he did. He was the first person to take the new instrumental variables estimation techniques. This is great, right? Our audience.
Okay, let's just say it's a new statistical technique. You got a Nobel Prize.
Applied it to large-scale
macroeconomic
forecast, or whole economy forecasting.
Okay, and so you went there, and you learned how to model. I happen to think
they threw me into this Southeast Asia trade model. 6,000 variable model. It was my first model. That's how I learned. I learned on that.
Okay.
So a lot of fun.
So stuff so my wife won't turn this off, okay?
Yes.
What's modeling?
Well, modeling is a lot of things. It's data, it's computer programming, it's institutions, thinking about institutions. If you're modeling a city or a country or anything in between, how do things work? It's economic theory, it's econometric theory, and it's applied statistics as well. It's all these things.
You need to tell people what's econometric theory.
Together.
Econometrics applied statistics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yes. It's statistics for economists,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the end, you end up with a big database.
Yes.
And you got
Yes.
a bunch of mathematical equations.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, a lot of modeling is really grubby and boring. But I think that the part of it that's interesting to anyone are relationships. There's
Right.
a key part of modeling that's all about relationships.
Okay.
And that is, what's the nature and the strengths of the relationship, say, between the mortgage rate and housing demand,
Okay.
or between jobs and population, or between jobs in a particular sector and consumption, or inventories.
Okay,
So there's all these different relationships, and we try to get a handle
Right.
on these because we have to codify them. We have to tell the computer what those relationships are, in fact, so that the computer can then compute the forecast.
What happens if the relationship changes?
It makes life hard for guys like me.
Okay.
In September 2008, I asked my wife Evelyn if I could just not forecast and live under the bridge, and she didn't like that idea at all. That was the toughest ex ante situation as a forecaster modeler that I've ever been in. When that happened, I knew there was a regime shift taking place, but I didn't know exactly where it was going.
Okay, let's step back. Yeah, that's right.
So
regime shift, that means all the relationships that we thought we understood all of a sudden were changed, right?
Yes.
The world changed.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden we had to figure out what the new relationships were.
Correct.
Problem is, you don't have any data in the new relationship, right? And so that you use past history to sort of estimate it. So after that, I remember we started creating new models and thinking about this.
Yeah.
And at first we were telling people, hey, it's a new model.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of data. We could be wrong.
Yeah.
And as luck would have it, we've actually been pretty accurate, so we can't complain too much.
That was I consider my biggest success actually was in November of 2008 when we had it fully worked out.
Right.
We predicted about a -4% job loss for the United States, in mid-09,
Okay.
and about a -5 for California. And they came in within 50 basis points of that.
So how'd you do that?
I don't know. Like you say, we didn't have data, and so
Yeah.
I tried to think of what was possible.
Right. Right.
And then I was using new indicators like the normalized TED spread, actually.
Right,
I was
yeah.
using things like that, and we started looking at things like debt a lot more closely than we had before,
Right.
home ownership rate,
Right.
and that we gave them a higher sort of pecking order in the model, if you will,
Okay.
than had been in the past.
Okay. And those relationships have been pretty stable since then, right? Because I think
Yes.
it's because you've got some big things, the home ownership rate,
Yes.
and the the capacity utilization's been low, and these things have just persisted for a long time. And
Yeah. I don't think we've had a regime shift really since then,
Right.
I think things have evolved a little bit since
Right.
then. I think we're out of what I was calling the good deflation equilibrium,
right.
which was occurring, because I think inflation is now back here to stay. It's not high,
Okay.
but I think it's here to
So,
stay.
yeah,
but that was a very gradual.
So deflation, there was a period in there,
Yeah.
even though the Fed was increasing the money supply, just throwing it out there.
Yep.
We were worried about deflation. And then actually
Yeah.
there were a few months where we actually saw deflation prices were declining for a little bit.
Yes, that is right. I was quite scared because you can have a situation occur where people see prices falling, and if you're considering buying a television, and it's, you know, it's 700 today, but you think, well, it might be 650 tomorrow or 600 if I wait just a little bit. You'll hold off on the purchase. Well, if enough people think that, and all these people are standing on the sidelines holding off on purchases, then demand in the overall economy subsides, further reinforcing prices to decline even more. And so it can become a nasty spiral. It doesn't have to be, but it can, and that's a fear that macroeconomists have had ever since the Depression.
Right. That was sort of the story on the Depression.
Yes.
And that's still what's happening in housing, right? You know, somebody looked to buy a house, and it's sort of, well, you know, prices certainly aren't going up right now, so,
that's right.
Why would they hurry?
You don't have to be in a
that?
hurry.
Right. Now, once these things get back to normal, though, once we get homeownership rates back to a sort of a steady state value and bank charge-offs get down, and that's assuming we don't have anything happen in Europe or the Middle East or anything like that. I mean, but say we get there, and then what are we going to look at? What are we going to start seeing? First, so that the signs are going to have to be, you know, the bank charge-offs are down.
Yes.
Homeownership is down to what, 65, 64%. Capacity utilization up above 80, probably, and TED spread down little tiny numbers.
Yeah.
And and then what are we going to look at? You know, somebody's going to expect us to figure out what happens after that.
My feeling on that is that I'll still be watching technology.
Okay.
That'll be an ongoing phenomena.
Sure.
It will be great for sectors like manufacturing and tech and information services and some of the professional and technical services sectors and things like ports where they use equipment. And, you know, various kinds of jobs like this. But it's not big enough by itself to take a macroeconomy like the United States economy or even California's and produce above trend growth or higher than long-term average growth.
Okay. All right.
So
well,
that's the question. Okay.
We're going to have to wrap it up. So we want to thank our audience. We hope you found this interesting. Dan Hamilton, Bill Watkins from California Lutheran University talking about the economy. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be slow slog out of this current recession. There's some people out there, though, they're very optimistic. And Brian? What's Brian's last name?
Westbury.
Brian Westbury is somebody you might want to look at. If you really want to get depressed, there's Muriel Robini, Dr. Doom. And but we've been reasonably accurate lately, and we think we're slowly climbing out of this. We don't think a double dip is the most obvious thing happening. Thank you.